Good evening, everybody. Let me just turn the music down a little bit now. I am going to do my usual and invite two groups onto the reading, and then we will get going. Sorry. Pulling everything down. Well, that was lucky, wasn't it? There we go. That was those dangerous Ifrits, I tell you what. They're trying to escape out of their little genie bottle. That was really lucky. That was just about to turn into a major fire, and you were just about to see the fire brigade arrive and everything happen on camera. So let's just turn camera down. So, good evening, everybody. We're into home haircutting at the moment. My name is Joanna Godwin-Seidl. I am your host for this evening's reading of 1001 Nights. We are now on the 402nd night, and I hope you are all sitting very comfortably. Without further ado, I am going to start reading for you. Good evening. So get your feet up and a nice cup of tea, and we'll start. Now, when it was the 402nd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the youth then betook himself to asking pardon of Allah and to invoking prayer and praise upon the apostle and the Lord of the just, and repeating verses of the Quran, after which he recited these couplets. O sire, be not deceived by worldly joys, for life must pass, and joy must learn to mourn. When thou art told of folk in evil plight, think thou must answer for all hearts forlorn. And when thou hear thy dead toward the tombs, know thou wilt likewise on that way be home." Continued Abu Amir the Basri. Now, when the youth had ended his charge and his verses, I left him and went home. On the morrow I returned at the appointed hour and found him indeed dead. The mercy of Allah be upon him. So I washed him, and unsewing his gown, found in the bosom a ruby worth thousands of gold pieces, and said to myself, "By Allah, this youth was indeed weaned from worldly things. After I had buried him, I made my way to Baghdad, and going to the Caliph's palace, waited till he came forth. When I addressed him in one of the streets and gave him the ruby, which when he saw, he knew and fell down in a fainting fit. His attendants laid hands on me, but he revived and said to them, "Release him and bring him courteously to the palace." They did his bidding, and when he returned, he sent for me, and carrying me into his chamber said to me, "How doth the owner of this ruby?" Quoth I, "Verily, he is dead," and told him what had passed. Whereupon he fell a-weeping and said, "The son hath gained, but the sire hath lost." And then he called out, saying, "Ho, such an one!" And behold, there came out to him a lady who, when she saw me, would have withdrawn, but he cried to her, "Come, and mind him not." So she entered and saluted, and he threw her the ruby, which when she saw and she knew, she shrieked a great shriek and fell down in a swoon. As soon as she came to herself, she said, "O Commander of the Faithful, what hath Allah done with my son?" And he said to me, "Do thou tell her his case," as he could not speak for weeping. Accordingly, I repeated the story to her, and she began to shed tears and say in a faint and failing voice, "How I have longed for thy sight, O solace of mine eyes! Would I might have given thee to drink when thou hadst none to slake thy thirst. Would I might have cheered thee when as thou foundest never a cheerer." And she poured forth tears and recited these couplets. "I weep for one whose lot a lonely death befell, without a friend to whom he might complain and mean. And after glory and glad union with his friends, he woke to desolation, friendless, lorn, and lone. What fortune hides a while she soon to men shall show. Death ne'er spared a man, no, not a single one. O absent one, my Lord decreed thee strangerhood, far from thy nearest friends, and too long exile gone. Though death forbid my hope of meeting here again, on doom, day's morrow, we shall meet again, my son." Quoth I, "O Commander of the Faithful, was he indeed thy son?" Quoth he, "Yes, and indeed. Before I succeeded to this office, he was wont to visit the learned in company with the devout. But when I became Caliph, he grew estranged from me and withdrew himself apart. Then said I to his mother, 'Verily, this thy son hath cut the world and devoted his life to Almighty Allah, and it may be that hard times shall befall him, and he be smitten with trial of evil chance. Wherefore, do thou give him this ruby, where he may find useful in hour of need.' So she gave it him, conjuring him to take it, and he obeyed her bidding. Then he left us to the things of our world, and removed himself from us. Nor did he cease to be absent from us till he went to the presence of Allah. to whom honour and glory be, pious and pure. Then said he, come, show me his grave. So I travelled with him to Basra and showed him his son's grave. And when he saw it, he wept and lamented till he fell down in a swoon. After which he recovered and asked pardon of the Lord, saying, we are Allah's, and unto him we are returning, and invoked blessings on the dead. Then he asked me to become his companion, but I said to him, Commander of the Faithful, verily, in thy son's case is for me the most momentous of admonitions. And I recited these couplets. 'Tis I am the stranger, visited by none. I am the stranger, though in town my own. 'Tis I am the stranger, lacking kith and son, and friend to whom I mote for aidance run. I house in mosques, which are my only home. My heart there wones, and shall be forever wone. Then laud ye Allah, Lord of worlds, as long as soul and body dwell in union. Excuse me, I'm just going to fix my light quickly because it keeps flashing. Stop that. Yes, there we go. So, and a famous tale is told of the unwise schoolmaster who fell in love by report. Quoth one of the learned, I passed once by a school, wherein a schoolmaster was teaching children. So I entered, finding him a good-looking man and well-dressed, when he rose to me and made me sit with him. Then I examined him in the Quran, and in syntax and prosody and lexicography, and behold, he was perfect in all required of him. So I said to him, Allah strengthen thy purpose. Thou art indeed versed in all that is requisite. Thereafter, I frequented him for a while, discovering daily some new excellence in him. And I quoth I to myself, this is indeed a wonder in any Dominie, for the wise are agreed upon a lack of wit in children's teachers. Then I separated myself from him, and sought him, and visited him only every few days, till coming to see him one day as of wont, I found the school shut, and made inquiry of him to the neighbours, who replied, someone is dead in his house. So I said in my mind, it behoveth me to pay him a visit of condolence. And going to his house, knocked at the door, when a slave girl came out to me and asked, what dost thou want? And I answered, I want thy master. She replied, he is sitting, alone, mourning. And I rejoined, tell him that his friend so-and-so seeketh to console him. She went in and told him, and he said, admit him. So she brought me to him, and I found him seated alone and his head bound with mourning fillets. So I said to him, Allah requite thee amply. This is a path all must perforce tread, and it behoveth thee to take patience, adding, but who is dead unto thee? He answered, one who was dearest of the folk to me and best beloved. Perhaps thy father, asked I. No. Thy brother? No. One of thy kindred? No. Then asked I, what relation was the dead to thee? And he answered, my lover. Quoth I to myself, this is the first proof to swear by of his lack of wit. So I said to him, assuredly there be others than she, and fairer. And he made answer, I never saw her, that I might judge whether or no there be others fairer than she. Quoth I to myself, well, this is another proof positive. Then I said to him, and how couldst thou fall in love with one thou hast never seen? And he replied, know that I was sitting one day at the window, when lo, there passed by a man singing the following distiche. Amir, thy boons Allah repay. Give back my heart, be it wherein it may. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 403rd night, Shahrazad said, it hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the schoolmaster continued, when I heard the man humming these words as he passed along the street, I said to myself, except this Amru were without equal in the world, the poets had not celebrated her in ode and canon. So I fell in love with her. But 2 days later, the man passed singing the following couplets. As and Amir went their way, nor she nor As returned for A. Thereupon I knew that she was dead and mourned for her. This was 3 days ago, and I have been mourning ever since. So I left him and fared forth, having assured myself of the weakness of the Geran's grinder's wit. And they tell another and a similar tale of the Foolish Dominie. Once upon a time, a schoolmaster was visited by a man of letters who entered a school and, sitting down by the host's side, entered into discourse with him and found him an accomplished theologian, poet, grammarian, philologist, and poet, intelligent, well-bred, and pleasant spoken. Whereat he wondered, saying in himself, it cannot be that a man who teaches children in a school should have a perfect wit. Now, when he was about to go away, the pedant said to him, thou art my guest tonight. And he consented to receive hospitality and accompanied him to his house, where he made much of him and set before him food. They ate and drank and sat talking, till the third part of the night was past, when the host spread his guest to bed and went up to his harem. The stranger lay down and addressed himself to sleep, when behold, there arose a great clamour in the women's rooms. He asked what was the matter, and they said, a terrible thing hath befallen the sheikh, and he is at the last gasp. Said he, take me up to him. So they took him up to the pedagogue, who he found lying insensible, with blood streaming down. He sprinkled water on his face, and when he revived, he asked him, "What hath betided thee? When thou leftest me, thou wast in all good cheer and whole of body." And he answered, "O my brother, after I left thee, I sat meditating on the creative works of Almighty Allah, and said to myself, in everything the Lord hath created for man, there is a use. For he, to whom glory be, made the hands to seize, the feet to walk, the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the penis to increase and multiply. And so on with all the members of the body, except these two bollocks. There is no use in them. So I took a razor I had by me and cut them off. And there befell me what thou seest." So the guest left him and went away, saying, "He was in the right who said, verily, no schoolmaster who teaches children can have a perfect wit, though he know all the sciences." And they tell a pleasant tale of the illiterate who set up for a schoolmaster. There was once, among the menials of a certain mosque, a man who knew not how to write or even to read, and who gained his bread by gulling folk. One day it occurred to him to open a school and teach children. So he got together writing tablets and written papers and hung them up in a high place. Then he greatened his turban and sat down at the door of the school. And when the people who passed by saw his huge headgear and tablets and scrolls, they thought he must be very learned. A very, very learned pedagogue indeed. So they brought him their children, and he would say this: to one, write, and to that, read. And thus the little ones taught one another. Now one day, as he sat as of wont at the door of the school, behold, up came a woman, letter in hand, and he said to his mind, "This woman doubtless seeketh me, that I may read her the missive she hath in her hand. How shall I do with her, seeing I cannot read writing?" And he would have fain gone down and fled from her, but before he could do this, she overtook him and said, "Whither away?" Quoth he, "I propose to pray the noon prayer and return." Quoth she, "Noon is yet distant, so read me this letter." He took the letter and, turning it upside down, fell to looking at it, now shaking his head till his turban quivered, then dancing his eyebrows, and anon showing anger and concern. Now, the letter came from the woman's husband, who was absent, and when she saw the Dominie do on this wise, she said to herself, "Doubtless my husband is dead, and this learned doctor of law and religion is ashamed to tell me so." So she said to him, "O my lord, if he is dead, tell me." But he shook his head and held his peace. Then she said, "Shall I rend my raiment?" "Rend," replied he. "Shall I beat my face?" asked she, and he answered, "Beat." So she took the letter from his hand, and returning home, fell a weeping, she and her children. Presently, One of her neighbours heard her sobbing. Asking what ailed her was answered, of a truth she'd gotten a letter telling her that her husband is dead. Quoth the man, well, this is a falsehood, for I had a letter from him but yesterday, advising me that he is whole and in good health, and will be with her in after 10 days. So he rose forthright, and going into her said, where is the letter which came to thee? She brought it to him, and he took it and read it. And lo, it ran as follows. After the usual salutations, I am well and in good health and whole, and will be with you all after 10 days. Meanwhile, I send you a quilt and an extinguisher. So she took the letter, and returning with it to the schoolmaster, asked him, what induced thee to deal thus with me? And she repeated to him what her neighbour had told her of her husband's well-being, and of his having sent her a quilt and an extinguisher. Answered he, thou art at right, O good woman, for I was at the time. And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. I'm going to read one more. Now when it was the 404th night, she said, it hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the pedagogue replied, verily, I was at that time fashed and absent-minded, and seeing the extinguisher wrapped up in the quilt, I thought that he was dead, and they had shrouded him. The woman, not smoking the cheat, said, thou art excused, and taking the letter, went her ways. And they relate the story of the king and the virtuous wife. A certain king once went forth in disguise to look into the affairs of his lieges. Presently, he came to a great village, which he entered unattended, and being athirst, stopped at the door of a house and asked for water. There came out to him a fair woman with a guglet, which she gave him, and he drank. When he looked at her, he was ravished with her, and besought her favours. Now, she knew him, so she led him into the house, and making him sit down, brought out a book, and said to him, look therein, whilst I order my affair, and return to thee. So he looked into the book, and behold, it treated of the divine prohibition against adultery, and of the punishments which Allah hath prepared for those who commit adulterous sin. When he read this, his flesh quaked, and his hair bristled, and he repented to Almighty Allah. Then he called the woman, and giving her the book, went away. Now, her husband was absent, and when he returned, she told him what had passed, whereat he was confounded, and said in himself, I fear lest the king's desire hath fallen upon her. And he dared not have do with her, and know her carnally after this. When some time had passed, the wife told her kinsfolk of her husband's conduct, and they complained of him to the king, saying, Allah advance the king, this man hired of us a piece of land for tillage, and tilled it a while, then left it fallow, and neither tilled it nor forsook it, that we might let it to one who would till it. Indeed, time is come to the field, and we fear it corruption. For such land as that, if it not be sown, spoileth. Quoth the king to the man, what hindereth thee from sowing thy land? Answered he, Allah advanced the king, it hath reached me that the lion entered the field, wherefore I stood in awe of him and dared not draw near it, since knowing that I cannot cope with the lion. I stand in fear of him. The king understood the parable and rejoined, saying, O man, the lion trod and trampled not thy land, and it is good for seed. So do thou till it, and Allah prosper thee in it. For the lion hath done it no hurt. Then he bade give the man and his wife a handsome present and sent them away. That was a fun one, wasn't it? And amongst the stories is that of AbdAlRahman, the Maghribi story of the Rukh. There was once a man of the people of West Africa who had journeyed far and wide and traversed many a desert and a tide. He was once cast upon an island, where he abode a long while, and returning thence to his native country, brought with him the quill of a wing feather of a young rook, whilst yet an egg and unhatched, and this quill was big enough to hold a goat's skins of water. For it is said that the length of the rook's chick's wing, when he cometh forth of the egg, is 1,000 fathoms. The folk marvelled at this quill when they saw it, and the man who was called AbdAlRahman the Moor, and he was known to boot as the Chinaman for his long sojourn in Cathay, related to them the following adventure, one of many of his travellers' tales of marvel. He was on a voyage in the China seas, and Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. That was the reading for this evening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it very, very much. Just hello, Tim. Hi, Joseph. Hi, Monica. It's so lovely to read for you this evening. Just to warn you, for the next couple of weeks, we're only going to have 2 readings a week because Samantha and I are very, very busy doing things, and it's going to be me doing those readings because Samantha's even busier than me. So we're going to read Wednesdays and wait, no, what is it today? Today's Tuesday. I keep getting the day mixed up. Tuesdays and Thursdays every week for the next couple of weeks until we sort it out. And don't forget but I will change that also in the event. Don't forget also on the 21st or the 22nd of May, we still don't know exactly which date yet, we will be having a live reading at the Pally Hansen Kempinski to celebrate 1 year of reading 1001 Nights, and we will have beautiful live music from Kami Absidiri and Bijen de Cordy. And yeah, I look very much forward to seeing you all again on Thursday. I hope you have a lovely day tomorrow. Apparently, at least in Austria, the sun is supposed to shine beautifully tomorrow. So let's hope that is true, because I have a friend coming over and we are going to go on a long social distancing walk with my dog. So take care, everybody. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the reading, and see you, don't forget, not tomorrow, but on Thursday. Good night. Take care. Many blessings. Bye-bye, everybody.